Hello everybody, we are back, and again we are going to be continuing on with the Champions Cup series that I hope you've enjoyed if you've been keeping up with it. Of course, if you haven't, make sure to check out the playlist, and if you're new, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. If you're new to me, new to hockey, whatever the case may be, I'd love to have you here along the way as I try to do this as a career. And today we're going to be talking about the 1927-28 Stanley Cup NHL season, I should say. But yeah, hopefully the 26-27 season video didn't deter you. I had to do it 3 times because it kept stopping when I was recording. But yeah, so today we're talking about the season after that, which is the 11th season in NHL history. And you didn't see a lot of change for the first time in quite a while. The league stayed at 10 teams and kept a 44-game schedule, just like last season. We know that they had been expanding. Things have been going really, really well for them, considering the PCHA and the WCHL, WHL folded, and they were able to expand and get more games. But right here, they're staying put with double-digit teams and a 44-game schedule. One interesting thing that is noted here is the Toronto St. Patrick's would be known as the Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, this season, as they changed their name into the Maple Leafs in September of 1927. I got that wrong in the last video. I think that they might have tried to change it, but I think they ended up officially changing it to Maple Leafs in this season. So yeah, there you go. They go from St. Patrick's to Maple Leafs, so we know for sure in this season the Leafs are the Leafs that we know. And another interesting thing here is that the Detroit Red Wings, which of course now are the Red Wings, formerly known as the Cougars at this period, are going to play their first season in the 1927-28 season in Detroit after previously playing in Ontario their inaugural season. And they're going to be playing in Detroit Olympia, a brand new stadium that would house the team until December of 1979. That's big. That's a long time that they were able to play in that building. And of course, if you were able to go back in time and go to a game there, I'm sure the atmosphere, especially during the points where they were really good, would have been insane. And now I will say we're going to go through the standings, and every year up until recently, I've been going through all the teams and explaining it. We're going to break it down because there's 10 teams. That would take a while. I don't want to bore you, so I'll show you for the standings. And then here you go. There's the standings. As for coaches, this was very noticeable. You had 2 coaches that were notable guys to debut. That is Jack Adams, yes, and the Conn Smythe himself. Yes, that Conn Smythe as well made their NHL head coaching debuts. Adams for Detroit and Smythe for Chicago. Also, you can see that the league is split up into 2 divisions. Again, like I said, America and Canada. So that is that. And then in the Canadian division, Montreal was the best of the bunch, with the Habs taking the top spot and the Maroons being second. So this is not something that is unusual. In recent years, we had seen the Maroons be pretty good. Montreal, the Canadiens had had some of their success, and they had clashed in the playoffs. So to see them at the top there is interesting. Defending champs, Ottawa, made it to the playoffs in the 3rd and final spot. And the New York Americans finished last in a division that they didn't feature in their country. As for the American division, the Boston Bruins, fresh off their Stanley Cup final loss, took the top spot under Art Ross as head coach, with the New York Rangers finishing 2nd. The Pittsburgh Pirates, that still seems so weird to say, finishing 3rd. And notably, Chicago was last, with a lot of drama being attached to the club that season. Seems like early on, a lot of these clubs really had a lot of instability and just problems all around. But yeah, the league's top scorer was Howie Morenz with 33 goals and 18 assists for 51 points in 43 games played for the Montreal Canadiens. As for the Hart Trophy, it was also Howie. And I don't want to seem depressing, but this is actually, something that I think I'm going to do a video about. Howie was actually having a really good year, but less than a decade after winning the Hart as a result of a hockey-related injury, he would actually pass away at the young age of 34. So while we do recognize that this was a really good year for Howie, it's crazy to think that within a decade he would actually pass away, and I will be doing a video on that. Don't know when, especially with the playoffs coming up. That might be a summer video, but I do have that in my notes to talk about a very crazy scenario there with how Howie's career played out and how unfortunately his life ended too quickly. But for the 27-28 season, back to the awards, the Vezina Trophy, it was awarded to the Montreal Canadiens yet again in the 2nd consecutive season, with their netminder George Hainsworth again winning it. 48 goals against in 44 games played with 13 shutouts. Absolutely insane. I know the numbers and the stats were a little different back then. Of course, the butterfly was, not allowed. But yeah, this is still something that blows my mind. As for the playoffs, we saw the Canadian division feature the Montreal Maroons and Ottawa Senators in the quarterfinals, and a 2-game total goal series with the Canadians getting the bye thanks to them being the 1 seed, just like last year. And for the American division, the Rangers would take on the Pirates in the quarterfinals, with the Bruins also getting an automatic spot in the semifinal in the American division because they were the 1 seed. So for the American division quarterfinals, it went as follows. Game 1, New York won 4-0 to take a 4-0 lead into Game 2. Pittsburgh would win Game 2 4-2, but New York, of course, had more total goals in the series, 6-4. They would head on to the semifinal to play the Boston Bruins in a rematch of the playoff from last year in their semifinal. As for the Canadian division quarterfinal, it was 1-0, the Montreal Maroons taking a 1-0 lead, of course, in Game 2. And they won Game 2, 2-1, and that, of course, a 3-1 total goal series lead to eliminate the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Ottawa Senators, a club that had won 4 Stanley Cups in the previous 8 seasons. Big news there for the Maroons, who were actually a club that was regularly in the spot to compete for the Stanley Cup. I know it was a smaller league, but they did make appearances multiple times in the Stanley Cup final. Then for the semifinals, we saw the 2 playoff rematches as the 2-seed Maroons took over and took the NHL's best regular season squad on in the Montreal Canadiens in the Battle of Montreal, as the 2-seed Rangers took on Boston to represent the other side of this, where the American clubs who were trying to get into the Stanley Cup final yet again. So for the Canadiens, Maroons 2-game total goal series, it went as follows. Game 1 tied 2-2. Very close there, of course, the tie, nothing can get past that. So Game 2, winner takes all. The Maroons win 1-0 in overtime and get revenge for last season's playoff loss against the Habs in the quarterfinals. So that was good for them, getting a little bit of a salt in the wound there for their rivals in the same city to go on to play for Lord Stanley. As for the Boston-New York series, it went like this. Game 1. I typed that in wrong. I think it was the Bruins, the Rangers, I think, that won 2-0. So they took a 1-0. I don't know what happened there. We're just going to keep going with it. But then in Game 2, the Rangers won 2-1 in overtime, tied the series. What is happening here? And for the Boston-New York series, apparently I ended up accidentally not putting this in my notes for the scores, but notably we had the New York Rangers beating the Boston Bruins. Don't know how that happens. I have 2 scores in here, but they are definitely not right. So yeah, Boston ends up losing to New York. I do apologize for that. But yeah, so in the Stanley Cup final, you have the Montreal Maroons taking on the New York Rangers. Game 1, Montreal won 2-0 to take a 1-0 series lead. Game 2, New York won 2-1 in overtime. They tied the series, but notably had their goalie injured in this game, and the Montreal Maroons head coach would not let it slide with him trying to get a minor league goalie or do anything else for the Rangers. Oddly enough, they ended up using their head coach, Lester Patrick, who ended up donning the pads and stopping 17 of 18 shots faced, as they ended up winning Game 2, pivotal game. Game 3, Montreal won 2-0 to take a 2-1 series lead. And then in Game 4, winner take all for Montreal, I should say. But then in Game 4, with their backs against the wall, the New York Rangers won 1-0 to tie the series up. And then in Game 5, it was the Rangers who ended up winning this game. Notably, another weird thing that happened during the Stanley Cup final run was the Rangers weren't able to actually play their games in New York because the circus was at Madison Square Garden, from what I could find. So yeah, they actually played their home games in Montreal. So there you go. The Rangers go on to win their first Stanley Cup ever and become the first American club ever to hoist Lord Stanley, as the Maroons couldn't hold on to a 2-1 series lead. I do apologize for not, having the Boston-New York series in there. I'll probably put the caption down below in the video description to kind of let you know, and I don't know how I messed that up there, but I did. But anyway, if you like this video and you didn't hate the fact that I'm a total screw up there with that, then please make sure to like the video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe, have a great night, and you can love hockey alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.